There's this lady in Nigeria. Her name is Alaba or Araba. I can't remember. Um, she makes chocolate cakes, just chocolate cakes. I know about her because my sister-in-law was telling me about her. She was telling me about a party they had, and they ordered Araba's cakes, and the cakes came at the last minute. The party was practically over. Everybody was just hanging out in the kitchen, talking and laughing and making noise and that kind of thing. And the cake arrived. And they said the cake was so soft that they couldn't even put them inside. They couldn't even slice the cakes. They had to put them in bowls. And then they topped up the cake with ice cream. And she said, "Do you know, Eme, when we were eating that cake, there was not one single sound in the kitchen. This was a kitchen where they had been talking, laughing, making noise, throwing things, and all that. When they started eating that cake, nobody made a sound. All you could hear was, hmm, hmm." Today, I want to tell you about the power of stories. That story that I just told you actually is a true story, and my sister-in-law told me about it probably 2 3 years ago, but it stuck with me. I remember the lady's name. I remember where she is. I've never met her. I've never tasted her cake. I remember which part of Nigeria she lives in. I remember, you know just because of that story and that picture of people sitting around in the kitchen in complete silence because the cake was so delicious and nobody could actually say a word, you know. So the power of stories is what you want to get used to using when you're having your sales conversations, when you're having your consultations. A story has a way of connecting with people and drawing them into a situation so that they make themselves part of the picture. They actually have like an internal conversation going on at the time of the story. And people tell stories when they're selling because they want people to actually come to the conclusion by themselves. Stories have existed. I mean, you were told bedtime stories, of Bible stories and that kind of thing. Stories have existed right through time because it's a way of people being able to make connections, develop culture, pass on information, and it's a very powerful way of actually connecting with people, not just on a logical level or in the head, but connecting with people in their hearts and their emotions. So that is why you want to develop your own stories that you're going to use. And we're not talking about telling people things that are not true, but being able to gather your stories and be very intentional about using those stories to persuade people, to influence people, not in a manipulative way, but actually to actually help your customer to see themselves in the picture as you tell the story of your product or of your cakes, and the adventures of your cakes. So like I said, stories create an emotional connection. And as we said earlier, buying is usually, in fact, not usually, buying is always an emotional decision. It's your emotions that you use to make that decision to buy something. After you've bought, you can use your logic to give yourself a rational reason for buying the thing, but the actual decision to say I'm going to go for this is usually seated in the emotional side of your brain. And the And telling stories gives you that advantage of being able to connect with people's imagination, people's emotions, in a way that they can then relate to to your cakes, relate to, see themselves in the picture, see what your cake can do for them. Like this story I just told you, I can't wait to taste her cake just because of this. And it's not because they said Araba makes beautiful cakes. It was more the story of that picture that they painted of what was going on in that kitchen at that moment when they were eating the cake. It just it kind of sticks with you if you tell a story that it sticks with you better than people telling me, somebody, if somebody came to me and said, oh, Araba makes really nice chocolate cakes, she trained in the cordon bleu, she uses the freshest eggs, that kind of thing, that is not going to stick with me. But a story like this would stick with people more, with me more than if I heard just a bunch of facts. So that brings me to my next point, which is that facts tell, but stories sell. Sometimes you're in the process of telling somebody about something, and they ask you a question that might be difficult for you to answer, or a complex question, or they bring up something and they say, what about this? I hear that this happened to, this is what happened to that, or whatever. They bring up something that might be complicated, and all you need to say is, well, I'm not sure about that, or I don't know what to say about that, but, and then you go on to tell a story. you know you tell a story. So there's different kinds of stories that you can tell, which I will go into later. But I will tell you about features versus benefits, because this kind of gives you a better idea of what I mean by what you need to do when you're, or what you need to think about when you're telling stories. Now, anything, everything that's being sold has the features and then the benefits. So the features of what could I say? Maybe the features of a phone. The features of a phone would be how many gigs of memory it has, how heavy or light it is. It's just 30 grams uh, heavy. It has an LCD screen with some high tech thing. That's not really what is going to make somebody sell. You need to now say the benefits. The benefit is that you never have to miss a call again. The benefit is that you can keep in touch with your friends and family. The benefit is that if there's an emergency, your kids can reach you on time. Those kind of things. So that's the difference between the features of something and the benefits. So I see a lot of cake decorators, go into talking about we use the freshest ingredients, or we have this year many years experience, or whatever. That is about you. Now, remember what we said about that. It's not about you, it's about the customer. What you need to do is now flip it over, and how is that thing going to benefit your customer? That is what that's what your story should be based on. So your story should be based on the benefits to the customer. So what is your customer getting? If you've seen my training on how to price your cakes, one of the questions that I asked there is, what are you really selling? So you're not really just selling the cake, the physical cake. You're selling the whole experience. You're selling the convenience. You're selling um, the love that they're going to get from their family. You're selling the praise that they're going to get from their boss. You're selling the experience that is going to be unforgettable to the people that come to the party. Those are the benefits. That is what you're selling, and that is what you should base your stories on. So you can tell stories that talk about the benefits, and then even when you tell your stories that talk about the benefits, you can tell the stories that um, kind of talk about added benefits that probably they would never have even thought about. You know, for instance, you say the mom, the kids cake was so nice, everybody finished, it was a lovely cake, and the next morning the child took breakfast in bed to her mom. And in fact, if you see this child, you know that this is not the breakfast in bed kind of child. So that is the um that's the kind of story that talks about the benefit, but the added benefit. Or you talk about funny stories, or maybe like the person that ordered the cake was complaining because they never got to taste it. That happens to me several times. They never got to taste. I hear the cake was nice, but I never got a slice because it was finished within the first hour. And then I say, okay, I'm going to send you I'll send you some cake or something like that. Those are the kind of stories that you can tell people. Or you say that when you're making your consultation, you say, or you want to sell, maybe they want to order a wedding cake, and you tell them, oh, I'll make you this wedding cake, but what I will do as an extra is that I will make a little cake for you that I will just make just for you, so that, because from what the last time that I delivered a wedding cake, or the last few times I delivered a wedding cake, the person who ordered it never even got to taste it because it was gone within a few hours or a few minutes. The cake was gone, completely gone. That kind of thing. So telling those stories, kind of, you're making you're making people engage. You're making people put themselves in the picture. You're making things relatable. You're making things unforgettable. Remember what the story I told you all about Araba and her chocolate cake. Now I'm sure you're going to look for that chocolate cake when next you go to Nigeria, if you ever go to Nigeria. But I mean, just those stories that make things relatable, that makes you have an emotional connection to something, either or makes you aspire for something, you know. Even you can also tell stories about, if somebody is having doubts about what, making the order, or maybe spending so much money, or that kind of thing. It is the stories that you tell that can convince them, because when you tell, if you have an understanding, like we've talked about, of the person's needs, their goals, their values, this would be a good time to actually bring in those needs and those goals, and to say, you're the one who said you like this, or this is what is I know this is important to you, and this is a way for you to get that thing that is important to you, or I know that this is your goal, and this is a way for you to get, to reach that goal. So that is the kind of thing that's what stories do for people. Also, what stories do is that it allows people to come to the conclusion by themselves. That is one of the most important things about stories, because people then, if you tell a story, like for instance, that's another reason why testimonials are very, very important, because once we will hear from other people to say, I used to be like this, this is the before, this is the after, this is what I was looking for, and this is what I needed, and then when I got it, and then this is when I got it, and this is how it made me feel, or this is what happened when I got it. So that is the hearing those testimonials and success stories allows people to put themselves into the picture. It allows them to make the connections themselves and come to the conclusion themselves that, oh, this person was in a similar situation to mine, and now look at what they got. That means that if I do the same thing that this person did, or I will get the same thing that this person got. You don't have to spell it out in that way, but by telling a story, it allows the person to come to those conclusions by themselves. So Another thing that stories do is that it helps you to also establish your authority. So for instance, if you've done cakes for, because obviously I'm not telling you to make up stories, I'm telling you that you already have good stories that you can gather and tell. So if you tell stories like I was talking about authority now. So if you tell stories like in the last few companies I worked with, this is what happened. So, and you're trying to work with a company, or in the or the last wedding, or this is what happens with all my brides, all the brides I work with, most of the brides I work with, this is what they usually like, and this is the way our procedure is, just like the other day, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. So there's many ways that you can use stories in within the selling process. You can use your success stories. You can tell stories with testimonials. You can tell stories with the experiences that experience stories of what it's actually like to experience your products within their thing. And in fact, sometimes you don't even have to talk about your cakes in particular. You could just tell the story of the whole event. You could tell the story of, you could paint the picture of the dress from the bride, and the venue, and the lights, and the warmth, and the food, and and then just paint that picture for people to, and the photographers and all that kind of thing. Some kind of story, or that is not just you boasting about something, but you are looking at the person and you're telling them a story that they can then relate themselves to, or they can then see the evidence, and have that and that creates that desire for them to also get that thing that you're telling them about. So that's it with stories. Examples of ways to start telling a story. I remember hearing some people say, if somebody asks you a question, all you need to say is, I don't know about that, all I know is, and then you tell a story. And it makes me think of, there's a Bible story of when Jesus made a blind man to see. And the people were shocked to see that the person that they had known to be blind was seeing. So they were asking him questions, how did this happen? Do you think that, they were asking him questions about theology, and asking him questions about his genealogy and all those kind of things. And all the man kept saying to them was, I don't know about all that. All I know is that I used to be blind and now I can see. So they were asking, oh, show us the evidence. Could it be that this man is a man of God? Or could it be this? Or could it be that? So if you will start going into all the technical things about why isn't it like this, or how is this going to be, or trying to trip you up or something, you can say, I don't know about all that. All I know is this customer, the other day, when they wanted something similar, they used to be blind and now they see. This customer wrote me this letter the other day to say this was the best party that she's ever had, and she has already booked me for her next Christmas, and it is just January. You understand? So telling stories it makes how will I put it? It makes your conversation real. So your selling conversation is not like, oh, I'm selling. It's more like, it's like a conversation. It's like a conversation, and you're helping the person to come to the conclusion. You're helping the person to make the decision, and this is the importance of the stories. This also, like in your product descriptions, in your customer stories, and in your own story as well. So your own story, you would say, you know, why you do what you do. You could talk about your process. You could talk about the love and time and attention that you put into what you do, that kind of story. And you don't just say, I put love and attention and time. No, you would say you would tell a specific practical story to show those things, you know. So like I said, you have stories, and you don't have to be, you know, have you don't have to be like a very, you know, like a teacher or a rocket scientist or somebody who has big words to use. You can just tell stories, those your stories, with sincerity, you know, as part of your conversations, and as being able to give people examples of the people you things you've you people you worked with, the experience you will get from working with you, the unusual things that happen, that are even the extras that go beyond just the cake that you give to deliver to people, that kind of thing, you know. And even when it comes to things like, you know, convenience and speed and all those kind of things, you can tell stories, you know, like when if somebody is worried about the delivery or whatever, you tell a story. You tell a story. You know, don't just say, "Oh, I assure you it will be delivered on time." No, tell a story. Tell a story. So start gathering stories. That's what you need to do. That's your work now. Start just gather yourself some good stories about the benefits, some benefit stories, some stories of customer experiences, some customer success stories or customer testimonials, your own story, your own process stories, generally what people have said about you, what has happened to you, what has happened to your customers when they have gotten the cake, you know, interesting things, important things. Oh, my customer got her picture in the paper because blah blah blah, you know, that kind of thing. And you know, that kind of helps you to relax into the process, you know, as well as helps the customer to see the benefits, and to that helps you become unforgettable, helps you get that, make those strong connections when you are working with your customers.